A big thanks to both Vincent and Sophie for inviting me here to talk to you all today and to share what we've been up to in the Truth and Trust Lab at UBC. So I thought I would start off this talk as everyone starts off, deception talks, with the number 54. So everyone in this room has probably started off a talk with this number. Of course, 54% is kind of magical in deception detection circles because it's the average accuracy rate found in Bond and Apollo's meta-analysis. Some people use the number to make the argument that deception detection accuracy is statistically significantly greater than chance. Others use it to say that when it comes to practical significance, deception detection accuracy is quite poor and we have a long way to go. But what I've been thinking about most recently is how this myopic focus on accuracy doesn't really map onto social life very well because of the consistent and pervasive truth bias. So we see this, even in the Bond and Apollo meta-analysis itself, that people are better at detecting truths than they are at detecting lies. And as Tim Levine has shown, people generally assume that others are telling the truth. Assessing veracity, never even crosses our mind in most social settings, even among a group of deception detection researchers. You probably don't go into every social interaction looking for lies. And so we might conclude that liars generally get away with their lies, that they're treated the same way as if they were treated telling the truth. But our research suggests that this isn't exactly the case. So I'm going to share 3 different studies with you that all assess how lies impact social responses, even when people aren't made aware of deception and aren't actively assessing veracity. Let's pull up the chat here in case someone sends. Oh, thanks, Sophie. Okay, cool. So study 1, the first study, examined how lies shape interpersonal attraction. And so here we had 152 undergrads. They were primarily heterosexual, and this is an important detail because we had participants watch videos of opposite sex individuals. So these videos were actually baseline and critical questions from a mock theft scenario. So in the baseline questions, of course, everyone was telling the truth. They were actually talking about what they were wearing that day, so it was visibly verifiable. And in the critical questions, they were either lying or telling the truth about stealing a $100 bill. Because these types of videos might naturally arouse some suspicion about veracity, we actually content filtered them. So we used random splicing, where we chopped up the audio and we rearranged it, and then we mapped it back onto the video. So this maintains some vocal qualities like pitch and loudness, but speech is garbled, so you can't understand what people are saying. And we told participants that the purpose of the study was to determine how people perceive others when they can't understand the content of what's being said. So importantly, people were not told that some of the individuals in these videos are lying and some are telling the truth. And then they were asked a bunch of different questions, but most importantly, how attracted are you to this person on a 1 to 7 scale? And in a 2x2, this is a mixed ANOVA, we found a significant interaction such that during the baseline questions, right, where everyone is telling the truth, there's no significant difference in how attracted people are to those in the truth and lie condition. However, during the critical questions where the truth or lie actually takes place, opposite sex individuals were more attracted to truth tellers relative to liars. So this suggests that liars might actually incur some sort of social consequence for their deception. So the second study I want to mention was led by my graduate student, Chris Gunderson. So all the credit for this work goes to him. And it explored the social costs of emotional deception in particular. So here we had 298 mechanical Turkers, and they watched 12 high-stakes emotional pleas to the public. So these are individuals who went on TV asking for help, trying to find their missing loved ones. some of whom were found guilty of killing the person that they were pleading to find, meaning they were being deceptive in that appeal for help because they knew exactly where that person was and that they weren't coming home safely. And of course, the other 6 individuals were genuine, had no idea where that person had gone, and were legitimately looking for help to find that missing individual. So like the previous study, we did not tell participants that some of these folks in the videos were lying and some were telling the truth. But we did follow up with a debriefing where we asked them if there was anything suspicious or could they guess what the study was about. Only a very few people mentioned deception. So only about 4% of people, kind of brought up of their own accord that this study might be about deception. So people seem to be watching these without kind of explicit suspicion about deception occurring. And after each video, we asked them to rate their sympathy for the person and to imagine there was a GoFundMe campaign to help find the missing person. And how much would they donate on a scale from $0 to $100? And what we found was that people reported experiencing more sympathy on this graph right here for genuine versus deceptive pleaders. And they also offered more money to genuine versus deceptive pleaders. So again, people don't seem to be suspicious of deception on the whole, but they are reacting differently to liars versus truth tellers. And that might make you wonder, like, where do these effects come from? What's underlying these effects? So we conducted a Brunswickian lens model. Here they're really just correlations, but laid out in a way that is more intuitive than a correlation matrix. And they indicate, whether specific movements of the face on this side of the graph are valid cues to deception. And on the other side of the graph, whether those cues on the face are related to observer sympathy ratings. So what we find is that deceptive individuals are less likely to express cues to sadness. That's action unit 1+4. That pulls the inner eyebrows upward and together and furrows the brow. And deceptive pleaders are also less likely to engage action unit 15, which pulls the lip corners downward, so into a pout. And specifically, the furrowed eyebrows seem to be positively associated with how much sympathy people feel for them. And so the kind of short story of this lens model is that liars don't look as sad as truth tellers, and so people feel less sympathy for them. I wanted to note that the pleaders are like a really fascinating but very unique and strange sample. And so I'll also note that we replicated these findings with low stakes, genuine and deceptive sadness expressions that we created in the lab. In study 3, lastly, I want to show you some kind of preliminary findings about how lies might shape conversation. Here we had 51 undergrads, and they each watched 40 videos, and these were relational truths and lies from the MU3D database. So this is, a huge shout out to Paige Lloyd, goes to these, who created and shared these. There's 320 videos. So if you're looking for videos of white and black male and female targets telling truths and lies, this might be the place for you. Basically, she had people describe someone they liked truthfully and describe someone that they disliked as though they liked them. So in both cases, they're describing someone positively, but one is a truth and one is a lie. And again, participants were not told that some people were lying while others were telling the truth. Rather, they were just asked to imagine that they were going to have a conversation with this person and to rate how comfortable they would be sharing personal details in response to a series of questions, including things like, describe your perfect day, or what is your most treasured memory? And what we found was that there was a significant effect of veracity on these ratings. So people were more comfortable sharing information with truth tellers relative to liars. Admittedly, this is teeny tiny. So this is collapsing all of the data and just running a paired samples t-test. What's really interesting is that when we run a mixed model in which we also estimate the variance associated with the stimuli, this effect becomes much stronger. So here, where we have lots of senders where everyone will watch 40 videos, it seems like mixed models can be a really powerful tool for pulling apart what of the variance comes from veracity and what comes from the senders themselves. So altogether, this suggests that even though people may not actively evaluate veracity in many social situations, they do seem to react differently from liars and truth tellers in a variety of different ways. That perhaps over many iterations and many social interactions that we have during the course of our days and weeks and lives might shape our relationships and our social networks. And so really, I think it's been invigorating for me to think outside of the kind of accuracy box and to think about dependent variables, different ones, basically, that might indicate that people do pick up on behavioral cues of deception, even when we're not looking for lies. In terms of future directions, I'm working with Nora Dunbar, hoping to dig more into how lies affect the flow of a conversation, as well as the process and outcome of negotiation. And I really want to dig more into mechanisms. So I found the lens model very useful for understanding why sympathy might differ across liars and truth tellers, but I want to extend this to look at different cues, particularly verbal cues, which are probably going to be more generalizable across situations than emotional facial expression ones. So that is what I wanted to share with you today.